We're continuing in the life of Paul. We're in Acts chapter 23. We got to verse 10 last week. This concerns a hearing that Paul was brought before the chief priests and Ananias, the high priest, and the council. And this was the commander's idea. That he was okay with this because he has no idea, and his name is Claudius Lysias or Lysias. He has not yet solved the mystery as to what is the deal here. Who is Paul, and why is there such an uproar about him? They haven't quite gathered it yet, and so he brings Paul to before this council, before this large gathering, and as we made note last week, they were set to abuse him. They didn't put up with just him saying the littlest of things. Greetings to everybody, actually, calling them men and brethren. And verse 1 in this, I have lived in all good conscience before God until this day. And then the high priest just commands a man, hit him in the mouth. You know, and what then occurs is that Paul actually says, I didn't know that was the high priest. And also it references scripture out of, believe that was in Exodus. Yeah, Exodus 22:28. He references that you're not to speak evil against a ruler. And then we have where Paul perceives that this is a divided council. That you have both Sadducees and Pharisees here. And then he makes a declaration that he is a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee, and it is because of the hope of the resurrection that he's on trial, that this has all happened. Well, that breaks up everything. You have the Pharisees now who completely agree with the resurrection. The Sadducees do not. They don't believe in the resurrection whatsoever. The Pharisees do, and this divides everybody up immediately, and there's a row, there's an uproar, there's suddenly this has been disrupted and becomes into its own riot here among the council, and the commander is concerned for Paul because he's caught in the middle of all this. He's in the middle. And we have this fearing lest Paul might be pulled to pieces by them, commanded the soldiers to go down and take him by force from among them and bring him into the barracks. Okay, so we are in Jerusalem. And how far away is the barracks from where the council meets? Well, we don't know. We don't know how far that is. But the commander is there. He has soldiers that are there. And they're not going to let this council just go berserk and kill Paul. And they still have come to no conclusion. Through all of this, they still don't know what's up here. What's going on? Who is Paul? Why do they have such a problem with him that they want him dead? That there's all this uproar through the city concerning him. What is it all about? It is a mystery to the Romans, and they're dealing with a Roman citizen, Paul. So they've got especially have to protect him. They especially do. Now, we have verse 11. But the following night, the Lord stood by him and said, the Lord Christ stands by Paul and says, and here is some very comforting words, because it means you have a future. And your future's not here. And you're not going to be killed here. Obviously, there's a time when you're going to die. But it's not going to be here and now. Be of good cheer, Paul, for as you have testified for me in Jerusalem, so you must also bear witness at Rome. So here Christ is getting him out of Jerusalem yet again. All right, Paul makes that statement, gives us that information back in chapter 22 when he's giving his speech before the mob in the streets of Jerusalem, talking about that Jesus had come to him in a vision and told him he needed to leave Jerusalem because they wouldn't accept him. And there was danger there. Now, Christ has come to him and said, as you have testified for me in Jerusalem, you're going to go to Rome. Well, he had never been to Rome yet. So this is a continuation of his duty. His life is not over. His duty is not over. And Christ is going to see to it that he can escape Jerusalem and actually make it to Rome. Okay, so he knows, Paul knows, and you can take this by faith. And I'm talking about Paul can take this by faith, that he knows his life is going to be extended at least till he's able to testify in Rome. He knows that now. He knows it. That Christ has already given him assurance that that's what he's going to do. So through all the things that are going to occur from this point all the way through the voyage, he knows he's secure that his life does not come to an end until he is testifying in Rome. Then that's we're really coming to the end of his days at that point. But verse 12. So verse 11, Christ comes to him, and when it was day. Now, I want you to know how God works. Because, and when it was day, now we have a plot that is being put together to kill Paul. Okay? The next day, the next morning, when it was day. All right, so the night before this, Christ tells Paul, you're going to Rome. The next morning, here is what happens. Some of the Jews banded together and bound themselves under an oath, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they killed Paul. So these men are determined. They are zealous. Now that's not saying they are zealots, because that's a political group inside of Jerusalem. Well, among the Jews. All right. Could some of them have been zealots? Sure. Could all of them have been zealots? Sure. But that's not why I'm using that word. They are determined they are going to kill Paul. And they're going to involve the highest positions of Jewish justice to do this, to pull this off. Meaning, this is what they wanted to do. Earlier in the chapter, matter of fact, verse 2, when we have Ananias the high priest commanding what he commanded, all right, they were ready to abuse Paul. They're ready to kill him. They are ready to kill him. And now they have over 40 men who are, they put themselves under an oath. They're not going to eat until they have killed Paul. Now, there were more than 40 who formed this conspiracy. So that's verse 13. There's more than 40 who have determined they're under this oath. They're under it. Now they're going to get others involved. And those others are going to be very willing to do this. They're going to go right along with it. No one, or it seems as though no one ever says, is this really a good idea? Or what happened to treating justice as justice? Whatever happened to putting him on a fair trial? No, it's not that. We're going to kill him. We're going to kill him. And would have killed him, except the Romans took him, and they're protecting him. Therefore, we've got to come up with a plan. And they come up with this plan. They form this conspiracy. Verse 14, they came to the chief priests and elders and said, all right, this is the top powers of Jewish justice. You don't get higher than these. Okay? You don't. And which means that there is no way Paul could ever actually get a fair trial here. There's no way. Because they're all joining in. They're not just hearing the conspiracy and do nothing. They're hearing the conspiracy and they join in with their part of the conspiracy. Because it's going to require more than just over 40 men who are going to do the act. There's got to be the setting up. So these assassins, these would-be assassins, need help to set this up. And it's going to have to come from the chief priests and elders. It's going to have to. So verse 14, they came to the chief priests and elders and said, we have bound ourselves under a great oath that we will eat nothing until we have killed Paul. All right, now would be a good time for one of them to say, okay, just get out of that oath. All right, this is a very bad oath, and we should not be doing this. All right, but no, they're not. They listen and they're complicit. They're going to be doing what they're called to do. Now you, therefore, this is coming from these assassins. Now you, therefore, together with the council, suggest to the commander that he be brought down to you. That would be Paul. Be brought down to you tomorrow, as though you were going to make further inquiries concerning him. But we are ready to kill him before he comes near. So we are talking about Jerusalem. How far, we've already asked the question, and we don't know, how far is the barracks from where the council meets? We don't know how far that is. But what they're going to do is set up an ambush somewhere in between. They're not going to kill Paul in the council. They're going to kill him somewhere in between the barracks and where the council meets. That's where they're going to lay in wait. But they need someone official to go to the commander and say, we would like to see Paul again tomorrow. And it's all in the false pretense that we just want to inquire more about this, which is really funny to me. As though, verse 15, as though you were going to make further inquiries concerning him. Okay, now I find that funny because the only question they have asked him yet, the only inquiry they have asked them yet is this: do you revile God's high priest? And that's after Paul says what he said. God said, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall, for you sit to judge me according to the law, and do you command me to be struck contrary to the law? And the only question they have ever asked him is, do you revile God's high priest? All right, now they couldn't say the high priest can do whatever he wants to do, because they know he can't. Not by the law of Moses, but he's doing it. and now the complicit in murder. Now being part of murder, well, this conspiracy anyway, to kill Paul, and we're going to make further inquiries. Well, I hope you get beyond one question this time. And of course, I'm not sure that the Romans really understood anything that was going on because it would have been conducted in Hebrew. How many of the Romans actually knew Hebrew? Probably not very many, and even the commander may have known enough to get by, but probably not enough to understand what was going on in the council. So, all right, here is our plot. You go, tell the commander, ask for him to be brought down to us again tomorrow, because we're going to make more inquiries. Well, that's what we're going to say. We're going to make more inquiries. But we are ready to kill him before he comes near. I'm still in verse 15. We are ready to kill him before he comes near. So before he even gets to where the council meets, and I can't tell you where that might be. I'm not sure that it could be in the temple complex. It could be there. But I do know that the Romans, it'd have to be in an area where the Romans could go, because the Romans are going there and they're not making a fuss about it. But yeah, this could be in the temple complex. But, all right, so we're ready to kill him before he comes near. So this will be killing him in the street. Now, understand, Paul isn't going to just be sent out of the barracks and told, yeah, you go see the council, and he's walking down the street alone. Well, they already know he can't do that. I'm talking about the Romans. Know very well they can't just let him out in the street, because next thing there'll be another riot and they're going to have to go out and rescue him again, or he'll be killed. So it's not as though they're just going to send him out alone. They can't. He's going to be sent out with a number of soldiers. I can't tell you how many, but if the commander, if Claudius is doing his job, it would be enough to be a deterrent. Okay, enough, however, that was whatever he might think, but it would be enough to be a deterrent. Now, here is a twist, because someone overhears this, and it's someone we never knew existed until it's important for us to know. We never knew Paul had a sister until now. And we never knew that sister had a son, a nephew of Paul, until now. And it goes right into the basic construction or writing style of the book of Acts, where if there is a major person who's going to be playing a part at some point in the book of Acts, we do get an introduction to that person, such as Paul. We're introduced to Paul at the death of Stephen before he goes to Damascus and meets Christ. We know about Barnabas even before that in chapter 4, and Barnabas is going to be playing a major role as well. First missionary journey. We're introduced to Silas in a similar way. We're introduced to Timothy in a similar way. Now, we have now someone overhears this. So when Paul's sister's son heard of their ambush, he went and entered the barracks and told Paul. How did he hear it? We don't know. But we are talking about a lot of men who are involved. There's over 40 who are going to do the act. Then there's the council and the chief priest and others who are part of this, that they know about this, and they could very well, now Paul's nephew may have heard it from this discussion going on. So when Paul's sister's son heard of their ambush, now that doesn't say he heard it from what they were saying from verses 14 and 15. And in that occasion, it could have been under discussion somewhere else. Some of these men discussing it, and this nephew heard it. It could be that. Or it could be that he heard precisely what was said from verse 14 and 15. Now, we just asked the question concerning this, is how old is this nephew? How old is he? Well, we don't know how old he is. But we could get a few things. One, he is called a young man. Okay, well, that doesn't give us a lot of a clue. We also see where he can get around on his own in Jerusalem. So he's old enough to do that. He's old enough to, so he's not a toddler. And as a matter of fact, a toddler wouldn't understand what was going on anyway. But he's old enough to where he can get around by himself in Jerusalem and go where he wants to go. And he does. He's going to go to the barracks and he's going to visit Paul. So he's old enough to do that. We also see where the commander takes him by the hand and treats him very gingerly. He's not gruff, and he actually when a centurion tells him, you know, this boy has Paul has sent me to bring this boy to you. He has something to say to you. You know, the commander could have said, "Yeah, I'm too busy for this. What's a boy got to tell me? What's this all about? What nonsense is all this about?" He's not gruff. Matter of fact, he takes him by the hand. He's going to take him aside, as it says, because this is going to be a private conversation. And it's going to be a secret conversation that needs to be kept that way. All right. Now, all the while, the commander has no idea that it's going to come to that, but he does. And he also respects the information. So he's old enough to, I'm talking about the nephew, is old enough to get around the city. He's old enough to where his information would be respected. And he's got some very good details, and details that could be verified rather quickly. Okay? And because certain things are going to begin to take place, such as someone's going to come to Claudius and from the council and ask that Paul be brought to them the next day. So that's going to be direct confirmation. But also in this is that the nephew must be too young to notice. I would assume too young to notice, because he's able to overhear a conversation, and those giving the conversation are either very, very careless, that's possible, or they don't think the boy can do very much. And him hearing it, he's not going to understand it anyway. Now, it could be they never saw him. It could be that somehow he was on the other side of a wall, other side of a window, but he hears it. And he's not an adult, and he's treated very gingerly, and in just given those kind of clues leads me to where obviously he's old enough to understand, old enough to get around, old enough to be trusted, but too young to be much of a concern for anybody. And he's going to be told, and it's warned by the commander, don't tell anybody you told me this. Don't tell anybody you told me this, because he's going to have a plan, and it's to get Paul out of Jerusalem. And it can be a danger to the boy if someone found out he told the commander. Now they're going to come and kill him. All right, they have no qualms in murder. They don't care. A human life is a human life is a human life. Okay. If you're willing to kill one, guess what? You just went over the barrier to where you would have no qualms killing anybody else. And I mean murder, not self-defense, but murder. You have no qualms concerning taking a human life. Now, we are getting ahead of ourselves. So, we have Paul's nephew hears this. Verse 16. So when Paul's son heard of their ambush, he went and entered the barracks and told Paul. So, his nephew is Jewish too. He has no problem going into the barracks to visit Paul, and evidently is allowed to do this. Evidently, Paul could have visitors. It's not that strict. On him, at least, he can have visitors. So here comes this young man, we will call him that. This young man comes in, and he's able to go visit Paul. He tells Paul, verse 17, then Paul called one of the centurions to him and said, take this young man to the commander, for he has something to tell him. Now, this centurion, that's an officer, this centurion respects Paul enough to take this request. Okay? And it's probably because he's a Roman citizen, and it could be from the basic character and demeanor of Paul that this man's not exactly the worst lawless person he's ever met. All right, he's pretty solid. Okay, go take this son to the commander. Tell him, for he has something to tell him. So verse 18, he does. So he took him and brought him to the commander and said, Paul the prisoner. And I want to notice that for a second, because that's the way that's what they're calling Paul. And I guess they have nothing else to call him. Paul the prisoner. And I just think it of some significance that they're now calling him that. But Paul the prisoner called me to him and asked me to bring this young man to you. He has something to say to you. Okay, so as we said, the commander, he's okay. He's okay with this. This is just fine. Then the commander took him by the hand. Now that to me, and I can't take 21st century American culture and force it onto first century Roman culture. I can't do that. He takes him by the hand. To me, that seems like this is a young-ish boy. That I would not call him a teenager. Just by this, I would say that. But I don't know. I can't force my ideas onto, in my times, onto somebody else. Because we can do that. But he takes him by the hand. Commander took him by the hand, went aside, and asked him privately, what is it that you have to tell me? He doesn't know. But this is going to be private, which I take this as being dealt with gingerly. What do I mean by that? Instead of standing there in front of the centurion and whomever else, okay, boy, spit it out. He takes him by the hand aside. What do you have? What do you have for me? What do you have to say? What do you have to tell me? And he said, the Jews have agreed. All right? The Jews have agreed. And when he's saying that this is what's about to be given, has been agreed upon by some very powerful men. They're in agreement together. And this is not to be ignored. The Jews have agreed in this. Okay? And this is the chief priest, the council, the elders, the more than 40 assassins, would-be assassins, I need to say that, that they are all agreed, the Jews have agreed to ask that you bring Paul down to the council tomorrow, as though they were going to inquire more fully about him. Now, we've already made mention, that's a part of the story in this that could be verified when whoever it is that's coming down from the council asks this to be done. All right? And all that would be verified. It'd be verified. But do not yield to them. Verse 21, do not yield to them. And in saying that is, do not agree, do not listen, do not try to appease them, do not yield to them, for more than 40 of them lie in wait for him, men who have bound themselves by an oath that they will neither eat nor drink till they have killed him. And now they are ready, waiting for the promise from you. So he has more information than what we've already got. He does. He's heard this. And so they will neither eat nor drink. Now earlier in verse 12, it just says, no, it does say neither eat nor drink till they've killed Paul. I'm sorry. They have that. But they are now ready. Okay, that's new information. Everything's set. They're now ready. They know where they're going to be for this ambush. They know where they're going to be. And they've got everybody's little mission, everybody's duty. They've got all that set. They are now ready, waiting for you to say you're going to do it. Now, verse 22. So the commander let the young man depart and commanded him, tell no one that you have revealed these things to me, because it could mean the boy's life. And you could spoil what he has planned, because he's going to have to come up with a solution here. And now, with what now does the commander know? Okay, that there are men in Jerusalem, and they are the most powerful men in, as we have said, in the Jewish justice system that want Paul dead. Not only that, we have men who are absolutely determined they're going to do it. And as we know, the high priest and the council and the elders and the chief priests, they didn't make this plan up. And they're not the ones commanding these 40, more than 40 to do it. They didn't. It's brought to them and they agree to it. So you have more than 40 who are determined and have an influence with the council. You have more than 40 who are willing to die to do this. They're willing to die under oath to do this. So that's quite a zealous crowd we have here. Now, here we need to think from the commander's point of view. Think from Claudius's point of view. Okay. He knows from what he's been told by Paul's nephew that this is an agreement that has been made. It is a plot. And he may very well die in the process. Romans will die. And when I say Romans, I mean Paul. All right, they have to protect him. They've got to protect him. And as we have said, they're not just going to send him down the street alone. He's going to be protected. Well, in order for them to kill Paul, they're going to have to go through some Roman soldiers. Now, it may mean Roman soldiers die. And it could mean if the commander went with him that day as he did the day before, as he did at at the end of verse 22, and the next day, because he wanted to know for certain why he was accused by the Jews, he released him from his bonds and commanded the chief priest. And okay, the commander, he goes down. He goes down with Paul and his men. All right, so it could be that the commander would die in this attack. And it's more than 40. And evidently, the Jews who are plotting this believe that more than 40, whatever that number is, between 40 and 50, are enough to do the job. Evidently, they know that's enough. Otherwise, they would be saying, okay, we've got to have more than this. We got to bump that up to 100, or we've got to bump that up to something else. You don't have enough to do this. But we just have to now ask the question, if this were to occur, what would it mean to Jerusalem? Because this is going to escalate into something very bad. This cannot happen where Roman soldiers are attacked in the streets and a Roman citizen in their care is murdered. All right, that will not go unpunished. It will not go unpunished. It will not. And what does it mean for Jerusalem if that were to occur? Now Claudius, he doesn't want that to happen at all. May have no concern for Jerusalem whatsoever, but for his men and for the prisoner in his charge. And he realizes now that Paul, who hates Paul, he now realizes that the most powerful men in Jerusalem truly hate Paul. Now, he doesn't quite, it's still a mystery. Why? Why would they do this? And now, once we get into chapter 24, we're going to have somebody that's going to try to explain to Felix as to why this would be the case. But he's hated by the most powerful men in Jerusalem. And Paul's enemies are determined. They don't care if he's protected by Roman soldiers. They don't care. That's not enough to stop them. They are ready to kill them. And this plot goes all the way to the top of Jewish society. To the top. All right, that puts some things in perspective for Claudius. That puts some perspective for that commander as to how far will they go? Because that's the next question. If they're willing to do that, and I say, no, tomorrow's a bad day, or no, we've already done that, I saw where that leads, he's been among you, you all went into this argument with each other and you almost tore him apart. No, I'm not doing that again. If Claudius says that, what are they willing to do? Well, he doesn't know. If they're willing to attack those soldiers in the streets, because they're going to have to, are they willing to attack the barracks? Because that's where Paul is kept. Are they willing to attack that? Because what Claudius is going to do is get Paul out of town. He's not going to wait for the next morning. And we don't know exactly his answer to the inquiry. Can we see Paul tomorrow? Okay. Can we see? We don't know what his answer may have been. But he's not going to be waiting for tomorrow. He's not going to wait because he cannot have this sort of thing happening in the streets. And we have to ask that, and he would have to ask that question, all right, if they're willing to do this in the streets, are they going to be willing to attack this barracks to get at it? Because we're talking about, they're surrounded by Jewish society, evidently willing to kill Paul. They're an island here. And well, that could be very tragic indeed. Now, they might decide that if need be, they're just going to go to the next step. Now, we go to verse 23. And he called 2 centurions, saying, look at this. He's not He's understands the danger now. Prepare 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen to go to Caesarea at the third hour of the night. All right? That's 470 men total. 200 of them, or is it, wait a minute, no. It's 70 of them, sorry. 70 of them are on horseback. So we have 470 men plus the officers that are going to be escorting. Now Claudius is not going to be among them. He's staying back at the barracks. But with all the officers, this is, and it's at a point when this is going to, at the third hour of the night, this is going to be somewhere around 9 to 10 p.m. Okay? And no one's going to be expecting that this is going to happen. No one's expecting. As far as we know, the Jews who have been plotting, you have the 40 some odd men who are not eating that night, okay? And you have the others, they're just waiting for the morning of when Paul's going to be delivered. They're waiting, having no idea that this huge contingent, 470 men, are taking him to Caesarea. And they are guarding him well. That it's going to take more than 40 some odd men to take care of that. A lot more. Because we're not dealing with, a few men on foot and guarding a prisoner down the street. This is 470 men, 70 on horseback, some with spears, regular soldiers. Of course, they are armed. They're all going to be armed very, very well. And now they're escorting him out of town at a time when no one expects it at all. The third hour of the night. Verse 24. And provide mounts to set Paul on and bring him safely to Felix the governor. This is going to Felix. This is beyond what we can do here. He's got to go to Felix to be safe there. He's got to. And Paul's going to be on horseback. So he's not just going to be walking among them. He's going to be on horseback. And so next week we will continue this. Claudius is going to write Felix a letter and telling him as much as he can tell him concerning Paul and why he's even bringing Paul there. And why does there have to be this sort of an armed troop to take him there? Why does it take all that? Who is this man? And so, thank you everybody, and hopefully next week we can continue.